Two brand new trailers to analyze on Bikini Rehydrated, along with a discussion about the difficulty of the game with ZakPak and a special Rehydrated Relief announcement. We cover it all in today's episode of The Rehydrated Show. A one-stop shop for all things rehydrated. Here's your host, RidersDX. Woo! 大家好，我的名字是 Wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Hello there, beautiful humans. My name is RidersDX. Welcome to my channel where today we've got the second episode of The Rehydrated Show. And so, sorry about the beginning. I had languages on my mind for a particular reason. But in today's episode, we actually got quite a packed show. So obviously we're going to do our typical news roundup. We're going to go through all the Bikini Rehydrated details. We're also going to go through two new trailers that we got off of the oven. So the first one is a languages trailer, which showcased all the different languages within the game. We also got one for Rock Bottom, which I was really excited about to see. So I can't wait for y'all to see my analysis on that. And lastly, we've got a huge Rehydrated Relief announcement in terms of another milestone that we're adding on. And also we got a discussion with ZakPak about the difficulty of this game and why it's stirring up some controversy within the community. So all that in today's show. It's gonna be amazing, it's gonna be fantastic. Definitely stick around for it. I'll leave all the timestamps up here right now so you can just jump to which section you wanna go to. By the way, here's today's fan art. If you want to see my reaction specifically to today's fan art, then check out my story. You know, y'all are completely amazing. I love all your art and it's so heartwarming to get it, so thank you so much. But now let's go ahead and dive into today's news roundup because it's like actually 12 at night right now and I want to go to sleep. So of course, the first thing we're going to talk about is Monday's motivational quote. And so THQ Nordic had a really interesting one this week, you know, absolutely no surprise whatsoever. But this week's quote was, "You're like a flower in a patch of seaweed," which actually was kind of cute, I guess, you know. The only thing I would say is that this is very insulting to seaweed. I'll have you know, one of my very close friends, Mystery, loves seaweed so much that she obsessively eats it. So I really think that this was very mean to seaweed. But otherwise, a really great quote. Here's another really huge news tidbit actually. We got confirmation of when we may be getting a lot about Bikini Rehydrated news. And so with Rehydrated coming out in just weeks now, they're definitely pumping up the promo schedule beyond these trailers. IGN is holding a Summer of Gaming event, kind of like a substitute for E3. And during this event, we're gonna get some Bikini Rehydrated representation. So not only do they have a speed run about Bikini running over there for charity, by the way, so definitely go support it, but they've also got some exclusive premiere footage of the game that's going to be reviewed during the event, and also an interview with one of the developers about Bikini Rehydrated. You know, if it's gonna be Martin, then definitely tune in because as you all saw, Martin is a really cool guy and definitely will answer most questions, so it'll definitely be a great interview. But this is set to take place on June 15th. There's no confirmation of what time it's gonna be yet. IGN is going to slowly release that information as the event gets started, and so we'll find out soon enough, but right now we just know it's happening on June 15th and we're getting both exclusive footage and an interview. So that's going to be a really busy day. I might consider live streaming it, depends on what my schedule looks like that day, but otherwise I'll make sure to cover all the details in the Rehydrated show that follows after that. Another thing I want to mention, and this is something that came from Noam on my Discord server, so thank you so much for bringing this to my attention, Noam, but apparently the Steam requirements are fully updated on the Steam page now. And so if you're considering getting this game for the PC, then they have all the requirements now, both minimum and recommended requirements. So definitely go check that out if you're interested in getting this game but you weren't really sure if it was going to run on your PC or not. And of course, we got two brand new trailers which I will be analyzing to depth very soon on this episode. So definitely stick around to hear my analyses of them. But the first trailer that we got was a languages trailer, and there's 7 total languages I think on there. There's like English, French, Spanish, Italian, Polish, German, and Japanese. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't get the language but you can't win it all, I guess. We also got the Rock Bottom trailer, and Rock Bottom was one of the only levels that we had not seen in motion in actual footage yet, and so that obviously was very exciting. You know, I'm really glad we got to see it, and definitely look forward to my analysis in that as well. But that's basically it for today's news roundup. So now I'm gonna go into some brief announcements about the Rehydrated Relief. And so currently we've raised $461. I think that's the most recent total. So we are so close to Sheriff's milestone, guys. You know, just a few more dollars is what we need to finally hit that milestone. But I do have some updates in terms of the milestone goals. So we are kind of like rearranging it a little bit. The only reason we're doing this is because I want to make sure that the people that I've gotten onto the relief in terms of releasing milestones actually get to release their content, because this is the first time that we're actually doing this, and so all of us are really unsure as to like how much money we're actually going to raise. And so I just kind of want to make sure that the people that want to release their content with the relief do get that chance. And so we're moving No Life's Bikini Bottom Tales trailer to $750, and we're moving Chester and mine's goals up ahead. So Chester's short film goal is going to be $1,250 now, and my 12-hour live stream Plankton Robotic Revenge will be the $1,500 goal now. So we're just kind of switching around a little bit. Nothing's really changed besides like the order of things. But the question that I want to bring up now is, what is our $1,000 goal? And that is the announcement that I'm about to be making right now. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Who Needs Normal.
Hi there, I'm Who Needs Normal. Most of you probably don't know me, but those of you who do will likely know me from my video last year called The True Story of Big Sky Interactive. It was a documentary style video, all about the company that made Spongebob, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. I was given the opportunity to interview some important people from that team, and get to the bottom of what went wrong, and why they shut down after release. It was an amazing experience, and if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out sometime. Since then, I've come across some new information on another SpongeBob game, Creature from the Krusty Krab. I don't want to give anything away, but what I will say is that it was initially supposed to be a very different experience. I am honored to be teaming up with RidersDX to release this new video as a Rehydrated Relief reward. When we hit a donation goal of $1,000, I will release the story of Blitz Games and Creature from the Krusty Krab on my channel. Even if you aren't a big fan of the game, I think you'll still be interested in what I found. So make sure you donate anything that you can to the Rehydrated Relief, and check out my channel so that you don't miss it. I'm really excited to be a part of this great charity, and I can't wait for the main event coming up really soon. And of course, the release of Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. I'll see you all then.
I'm ready! Je suis prêt!
Jestem gotów!
Okay!
Look at that guy! With that big square head and those short shorts? That's the most hideous thing I've ever seen!
Wait, that hideous thing looks like me!
I always knew SpongeBob would be the death of me!
Jumpin' jelly beans? A robot SpongeBob!
There's definitely something funny going on here. And I don't mean you. Something else funny.
Irgendetwas Komisches geht hier vor sich. Und damit meine ich nicht dich. Was anderes Komisches.
Está claro que aquí pasa algo raro. Y no me refiero a ti. Algo aún más raro.
Il se passe de drôles de choses par ici. Et je ne parle pas de toi. Autre chose de drôle.
C'è qualcosa di molto strano dietro a tutto questo. E non sto parlando di te. Strano in modo diverso.
Zdecydowanie dzieje się tu coś dziwnego. I wcale nie mam na myśli ciebie. Coś innego.
間違いなく何か怪しいことが起きてる。君のことじゃないよ。別のことだ。Plankton! You're behind all this, aren't you?
Okay, so before we get into this analysis, when I first saw this trailer, I actually was a little bit confused as to why they were showing off this cutscene, because I kind of got the feeling that they were going to show off something about the languages in the game, because that was definitely something that Martin emphasized to me when I was interviewing him during my BFBB Rehydrated producer interview. But when I saw the trailer, I was surprised that they used one of the final cutscenes within the game to show off the feature, because I'm like, man guys, don't you want to kind of keep the ending a little bit of a surprise, you know? I mean, they've already shown some parts of it already, but now they're just showing like an actual cutscene from it. Like, it just seems like, man, they don't want to like keep anything a secret. But then the more I thought about it, the more that this actually made sense, because this is one of the only cutscenes within the game where Patrick and Sandy are in the same scene. Throughout the entire game, they're in completely different levels, and so they never interact with each other. And so I think they used this cutscene because they wanted to show off as many voice actors as possible. So it makes sense to me now, although I kind of wish that I was able to get surprised by this cutscene, but you know, you can't be winners all the time, I guess. I do understand the decision though, so I'm not too angry about it. So at number 1, the first thing I want to bring up was the robot Spongebob over here. And so I know we've already seen robot Spongebob, but one cool little detail that I want to point out here that I might have actually been able to point out before, but I didn't because I just didn't realize it till now. But it looks like Purple Lamp Studios went out of their way to remove the green circles from robot Spongebob just for this cutscene, because in the original the green circles were still on there during the cutscene, but in this new rehydrated cutscene the green circles are gone. So I gotta say, I love the dedication Purple Lamp Studios is showing to like small little details like this. I guess they just thought that robot Spongebob would look better this way. Maybe they're thinking that the green circles were the equivalent to acne, and so they want robot Spongebob to have that clear cut face, you know. Guess that's just how it is. By the way, I just want to mention that robot Spongebob is probably my favorite boss robot of all 3 that we've seen, and that is because I think he is just the most faithfully recreated. I mean, obviously he does have a few differences here, like his eyes, but I feel like they changed less of robot Spongebob compared to the other 2, and robot Spongebob just looks like exactly what I envisioned he would look like in this game. And so I really do like him for that reason. Plus he was also my favorite boss in the original game overall, and so he was always going to have an upper hand. Number 2, I want to point to the facial expressions of the characters, and so let's start with Patrick over here. He's definitely a lot more animated compared to the original. He has a lot of different expressions in response to seeing robot Spongebob, including a small smirk at the end, which is definitely a little bit different compared to the original. Like, Patrick definitely looked a little bit more on the disgusted side in the original, but in this one he's actually like smiling at the end, which a lot of people have pointed out is kind of weird, and I would agree with them. But I'm also going to point out that he's Patrick, so everything with him is just not going to make sense.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
He's gonna find the most stupidest or most like inappropriately unfunny things to be funny. So I guess this is just a joke within itself if you think about it that way. And then I also want to point to Squidward, and he's definitely the one I want to focus on because he has completely different facial expressions here compared to the original. In the original game, he looked absolutely grumpy, you know, that like typical Squidward look that we're so used to in basically all the SpongeBob episodes. He looked like that in the original game, but in this rehydrated remake, he looks terrified. He sees robot Spongebob and he's scared to the core that he's gonna die. And so even though we're keeping the same cutscene audio, because of Squidward's expressions being completely different from the original, it tells a slightly different story here. And I just find this to be so fascinating because it makes me think, how else did they change like the cutscene animations and all the other cutscenes throughout the game? Because depending on what they do, it could completely change the vibe of the cutscene, which I find to be really interesting. I'm really not sure if I prefer this rendition or the previous rendition. While I think that this rendition of Squidward looking scared makes a lot more sense in terms of context of the situation, at the same time I felt like Squidward being annoyed in the original game was a joke within itself. He's like, oh, this is just so ridiculous and I am done with it, you know? That's basically the vibe that I got off of Squidward from the original game, and that was completely within his personality. And so I'm not really sure. Let me know in the comment section below which one you prefer, but I really wanted to talk about this because I just find this to be so fascinating and kind of shows a lot of potential in terms of like how the story might be revamped just from facial expressions alone. We also got to see a little bit Sandy, although she isn't that expressive, which kind of falls in line with how she was in the original game. Same with SpongeBob, you don't really see huge expressions on his face besides a couple things here and there, so I'm not going to comment too much on them. And number 3, I wanted to point out the mime over here. And so in the original game, when the mime is in the background and SpongeBob makes that comment where he's not funny, the mime begins to frown, you know, reacting to what SpongeBob is saying. But in this game, the mime continues to be happy, but the mime reacts when SpongeBob SpongeBob gasps. And so I think it would have been cool actually if they combined both of those things, because I think the mime frowning makes sense, but I also think the mime like losing his balance when SpongeBob gasps also makes sense. So I think both would have been good to have, but I'm not too uptight about this at all. Like, it's just a mime in the background. And number 4, obviously with the languages trailer, they showed off all the different voice actors. As far as I know, all the other languages in this game that are supported are the voice actors of the TV shows from their respective countries. Let me know if I'm wrong on this. I know at least the German one is from the TV shows after talking about the Martin specifically, but let me know if all the other voice actors are from the TV shows as well. I'm personally gonna say that my favorite is the Japanese one, just because he just sounded so dramatic, and the way that he gasped when he saw Plankton was hilarious. I loved it so much. And so I might actually consider playing the game first on Japanese, just because I want to hear their renditions, and plus I'd already played this game with English a million times, so I don't think it's really worth playing through it English again through this initial playthrough of Rehydrated. And number 5, we got to see our first full look of Plankton, and oh my gosh, he looks so cute. Okay, all seriousness though, Plankton looks really good here. I think my favorite feature with Plankton in the remake when compared to the original is that in the original cutscene, Plankton is just kind of there like frowning, trying to reach the switch, but in the remake, Plankton actually shows his teeth and shows that he's actually a little bit frustrated that he can't reach the switch. And so I love that extra emotion that they added to his facial expression. Another example of the expressions really telling 1,000 words in terms of a story. I mean, I think Squidward was a much bigger example, but this is still a really good example of how just changing the expressions can help the cutscene like either become much more lively or emotional, or just tell a completely different narrative in general. And Plankton definitely comes off as more frustrated and angry here, while in the original game it kind of just seemed like, oh, I messed up, let me try to fix this before anyone notices, you know, kind of that feeling-ish. And number 6, this is actually the final thing I'm gonna mention because there's really not much else to talk about this trailer, but the Duplicatotron has a pretty different color scheme compared to the original. In the original it was a lot more brighter, but in this one it has a dark blue color to it. The words are still painted on the Duplicatotron, but overall it looks a lot darker and kind of just blends in with the overall dark theme of the chum bucket overall. As you can see from original, like you could see everything in the chum bucket, but in this one all the walls are like basically in this dark abyss, and it just looks so much darker and so much more intense compared to the original. And I'm really looking forward to reliving this boss fight in the remake, because this was by far my favorite moment in the original game, so I'm really curious as to see how they remade it in the remake. But from what I've seen so far, it looks really great and really promising. And that is my analysis for this trailer, so let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do y'all think about the language options? Are there any languages that you wish were supported that aren't? What's your favorite voice actor so far from what you've seen? And just, yeah, let's keep this going along in terms of Rehydrated. You know, I'm excited. I can't wait for the next trailer, and I can't wait for the game to come out. Coming up on the show, we've got another analysis on a Rock Bottom trailer, and then later on we've got a discussion with ZakPak about the difficulty of Rehydrated and why it's causing quite a stir in the community, so stay tuned for that.
Hello everyone, I'm Dave Ace, and for those who don't know me, I'm a quote-unquote Sonic tuber. I do a bunch of things related to the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. I want to give a huge thank you to RidersDX for inviting me to this charity event. I love doing charity events, specifically this one as it's so unique and very special to a cartoon that I grew up with and still enjoy today, Spongebob Squarepants. For Rehydrated Relief, I will be streaming more of Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. I'll be continuing where I left off on my pre-stream, and then afterwards, I'm gonna be looking into streaming Employee of the Month or SpongeBob Teaches Typing. I believe that's the title of that one. Thank you again, writers, for putting all this together, and thank you guys for being such a supportive fan base, and let's have some fun.
To the dark depths of Rock Bottom, home of strange creatures and souvenir t-shirts.
job, Spongebob. That was some fancy sliding.
Okay, so number one, I just want to bring attention to the overall look of Rock Bottom. I think Purple Lamp Studios absolutely nailed it here. I love how Rock Bottom looks because it still has that really dark, unsettling feeling to it, but at the same time, the colors within the level itself are a little bit brighter and are more contrasted, and so it is easier to see things around here too, but it still has that dark, grungy feel, and I feel like Purple Lamp Studios just really nailed the best of both worlds here, and Rock Bottom just looks absolutely gorgeous here. I'm loving how everything looks. I'm loving the lighting. I'm just loving this art style. You know, they did a really good job, and it actually matches up really well to the concept art that we got to see a little bit earlier, I guess like sometime last year. So they stuck very, very closely to that. And number two, I want to talk about the neon colors here, and so you can see the Rock Bottom sign, for example, and also the borders of the slides over here. It's got this like bright purple color to it. Almost gives me like a Las Vegas feel, which actually kind of suits Rock Bottom well because obviously Las Vegas, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. I don't know, something like that. And so it does make sense. And if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure the original episode where Rock Bottom was introduced did have neon signs as well. Although if someone wants to correct me on that, then go ahead. I'm not sure. I just feel like Rock Bottom neon signs, that just seems completely right, and I love how it looks here. I especially love how it looks on the slides in particular. It looks really good here and definitely makes the sliding seem a little bit more exciting in this level. Number three, I want to take a look at the section with Sandy where she's gliding over the buildings, and the buildings have this like turquoise blue color to them, which matches the concept art really well as well. It looks slightly brighter compared to the original game, and it looks a little bit more consistent in terms of color. In the original game there was some more diverse colors being used, but overall this still looks really clear. And I just gotta say, I really wanted to bring up the scene because looking at this view of Sandy and seeing how many things are out in the distance looks really, really good, and just kind of shows you like, wow, the scope of this game in terms of its visuals, it's really starting to wow me. And I honestly can't understand people that say that the graphics look bad, because honestly this game looks gorgeous, and it's basically everything that you could want as a SpongeBob fan in terms of a video game in this generation. Like, it looks great. So I don't know, if someone wants to like point out to me like why technically these graphics might not be the best, then let me know. But as far as I'm concerned, Purple Lamp Studios did a really good job at just nailing the look of this game. And number four, I want to talk about the museum. So this is something that we've actually never seen before this. Like, we've seen screenshots of the outside Rock Bottom sections before, but definitely not the museum. And so the museum looks great. It's got quite an overhaul and just looks absolutely gorgeous, you know, like most museums are supposed to look. And there's definitely a lot of things to point out here. So the first thing I want to point out is the Chuck robot. And so the Chuck robot looks awesome. It looks so wacky and looks so just crazy and dumb. And the Chuck robot was always like one of my biggest enemies playing this game as a kid. I hated having to evade those rockets, and the Chuck robot here just looks absolutely insane. It looks like it's going to rip your head off at any moment. I think the eyes especially give it a much crazier feel compared to original, and so yeah, I'm really liking how Chuck robot's looking here. At number five, I want to take a look at all the paintings in the museum. And so a lot of these that we can see the full picture of at least are Squidward's paintings. So I'm guessing they're adding a lot more Squidward's paintings in this for some reason. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Squidward is an artiste, so he deserves to have his paintings in the frames and all that. As far as I can tell, none of these paintings were actually in the original game. If anyone wants to correct me on that, then please let me know in the comment section below, but I definitely don't recall seeing any of these. Most of the paintings in the original game were actually screenshots of the original show, and also some concept art made by Heavy Iron Studios, and it looks like it's all been replaced, which I'm a little bit sad about. I'm hoping that we still get to see some of the original Heavy Iron paintings in here somewhere, at least the concept art. I really don't want them to remove the concept art, but you can see that there's some paintings here that are of Squidward. So one is this baby Squidward over here. I feel like this is a parody of something, but I can't really put my finger on it. I definitely don't remember seeing this in the original. There's also this screaming picture with Squidward, which is a parody of the actual famous painting, so that's really cool. There's also one where Squidward is riding or even humping himself. Like, I know Squidward is narcissistic, but Squidward, come on, man. It's a children's game. And a quick little fun thing is that you can see a small smidge of Barnacle Boy over here. I'm really curious to see him in action when the actual game comes out. And number six, the biggest thing I wanted to point out the museum here that I decided to save for its own bullet point is that you could see on the left that there's actual fish models being showcased as an art exhibit piece over here. And this is an interesting choice. I'm wondering if there's anything else like this within the museum also. Like, what other models could they show? Could they show off like maybe robots, for instance? Or about other SpongeBob characters. I'm really curious to see if there's anything else like this in the level. Another fun little thing to note is that there's a nice little sign to the left of it that says Squidward bold and brash belongs in the trash. Great reference here. They really should have the actual painting here though, and I think what would have been really funny is if you had the actual painting in a trash can and then had that plaque on top of it. Like, I think that would have been really funny, but the fact that they referenced it is awesome enough. At number 7, we got to see the Sleepy Time robot. I think this is the first time we see him in action, but correct me if I'm wrong, but the Sleepy Time robot looks absolutely vicious here. Like, my gosh, you definitely do not want to mess with that robot. I mean, as a kid, it definitely scared me, but now in this game, like, its eyes just look crazier and it just looks that much more menacing, and I love it. This redesign is definitely a glow up in my eyes. At number 8, I want to keep looking at this cutscene because I want to bring attention to the fish actually. And so the fish over here is clearly frightened, but now this cutscene has been changed where it brings some attention to a joke that I think a lot of people actually miss in the original game. When the fish sees the Sleepy Time robot, it actually pees itself before it gets zapped. And now in this cutscene, they're actually bringing attention to that, because if I'm being honest, I didn't realize that that was an actual joke until a couple years ago when someone pointed it out on like Twitter or something. I was like, wow, I had no idea that that was a thing. So it was a great joke, but unfortunately, because of the way that the cutscene was edited, no one actually noticed that that happened. You know, it was always this like fun little secret that if you were paying enough attention to the details, you would know. And so now everyone gets to be on the secret, everyone gets to laugh at it. You know, it's really great. And number 9, this is something that I actually found from ZakPak's video when he did his analysis, and so I wanted to make sure that I included this because it actually ties a little bit to our discussion later on in this video. But if you notice here, when you're in the vicinity of the Tartar robots, when they start shooting their projectiles, you see those red spots on the ground. That represents where the projectiles are going to, and this is another example of how the developers are slightly altering the game to make it a little bit easier by showing these visual cues that kind of help the player out in terms of avoiding like things from incoming robots and such. And so I actually think that this change isn't the worst thing that they've done, to be honest. I think it'll be helpful because the Tartar robot, sometimes it was hard to even remember that the Tartar robot was shooting at you. You know, you heard the noise, I guess, but I don't know. Sometimes I had a hard time realizing that the Tartar robot was actually shooting at me, and before I could react, you know, it shot behind me and I would get damaged. You know, it's happened a few times when I was like colliding with Sandy throughout this level, for instance. And so I think it's an okay change. I probably would have preferred if they didn't do it, but I'll have more thoughts on this overall topic later on in the video. So definitely check out the discussion if you want to hear more thoughts on that. At number 10, I want to note here that the shy tikis on the slide no longer disappear when you get close to them. So as you can see, SpongeBob is getting close to the shy tikis and they're not disappearing at all, unlike if you were to walk up to them. And while this could be seen as another example of making the game a little bit easier, actually it was basically impossible to attack these tikis in the original game because they would always like shrink down whenever you get close to them because you were sliding. There was no way to tiptoe on a slide, and so it was more so a pretty useless feature in my opinion. So I guess this is fine to me because now I can actually collect some of those shiny objects that I really want. I mean, I guess it just doesn't make sense to me in general to have shy tikis on a slide, but Heavy Iron did it, so it is what it is. And that was gonna be everything for my analysis, but I want to point out one little thing that I just noticed while doing this analysis actually. So there's even things I'm noticing while I'm recording the video. But number 11, we get a small shot of the golden spatula. If you look very closely, there is a glow around it, and this was something that a lot of people had commented on in the beginning days of this game when people saw the golden spatula and saw that there was no glow around it. It was like, well, it should have a glow because it's the golden spatula. It's the ultimate collectible in this game. It should definitely feel special when you grab it. And so it looks like Purple Lamp Studios have definitely added it now. It's not as bright as it was in the original game, but at least it's there. And so this also leads me to believe that this is a later build of the game because this trailer had very little blemishes in my opinion. You know, there wasn't really anything that I spotted that I was like, oh, they need to improve this. Like this definitely is like a bug or something, but I couldn't really spot anything like that here. So maybe this trailer is very close to the final edition. I mean, who knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say. Let me know if there was anything I missed. You know, I probably did miss missed something. I tried to both analyze everything myself, but also take a look at everyone else's videos just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But let me know what your favorite bullet point was. Let me know what your least favorite bullet point was. Are you excited about rock bottom? And actually, what's your favorite level you've seen so far? I would love to hear your thoughts about that. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much everything for this analysis. Coming up on the show, we've got our discussion with ZakPak about the difficulty of Battlefield Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. We're going to talk about why we feel like the difficulty is a little bit different in this game compared to the original and how we feel exactly about it. So stay tuned for that. Welcome back to the show, beautiful humans. So we got the next segment. So I don't know if y'all can tell, but I just got it from a nap. You know, I already have a lisp, so I'm probably gonna mess up even more because of this. But we've got our next segment on the show here. I've got a very special guest here. Zach, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey guys, my name is Zach from the channel ZakPak, and I'm honored to be here on the Rehydrated Show with RidersDX.
Great, thank you, Zach. Just like last week, I had Sheriff come on to talk about a specific topic within Rehydrated, and today we're going to talk about something very specific too. But before we get into that, Zach is also a part of the Rehydrated Relief, and so I just wanted to get a little bit of his thoughts of how he feels about being a part of the Relief.
Oh, it's honestly amazing. When I got the DM from you on Discord asking me to be a part of it, I was legit actually really excited because I think I told you this, but my grandmother had just passed from COVID like a day or two earlier. So it actually was like a sign that I really needed to do this. And I'm so happy to be a part of this great team. And I can't wait to see how well this does in the end.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry to hear about your grandmother. It's clear like message to me that this is impacting like real people and real lives. And so I figured that this was a great way to utilize all the attention that we're getting on our channels because of this game in a positive manner. It's something that I've always wanted to channel with my channel. I could have thought of a better way of saying that, but it's always something that I wanted to just utilize the influence that I was able to gain just because of people that were so nice enough to just click a red button and watch my videos every week. You know, it's such a humbling experience, and so I just thought that this was a really great way of utilizing that in a good way. But moving on to today's topic now, we're going to talk about Battlefield Bikini Bottom Rehydrated and specifically the difficulty of it, because there's been a lot of discussion going on recently, especially that Battlefield Bikini Bottom Rehydrated seems to be dumbing down the game in terms of its difficulty. And so I wanted to bring on ZakPak to talk about this because he recently made a video where he talked about some really good examples of why people have these concerns. And so Zach, I'm not sure, would you like to give a brief summary of your video just to get people up to speed?
Yeah, so I basically brought up a few main points as to why I think they're dumbing the game down. First of which being the, well, this is a random order, not the order in the video, because I can't remember that. The signs on the buttons, changing that. I know you like that change, but I wasn't a huge fan of that, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. Also, the robot's AI seems to have been tweaked, and you mentioned that in last episode, because I talk to Shift about that.
I'm trying to think of what else you talked about.
Yeah, I know there are other things, and I'm completely blanking.
The cruise bubble.
The cruise bubble.
The cruise bubble
yes,
was another one.
Thank you. And I think there was something else, but I think those were the main 3 points that I hammered on quite a bit for that video.
Yeah. And so I did think that the button thing was a good change just because I didn't personally think that would impact the gameplay that much. I mean, it's just kind of a small change that's just there. I kind of see it in the same way as the arrows, you know, when you have Spongebob wall jumping. I kind of see those as like a similar thing. Although I will say that you did bring up that there was a certain challenge to figuring out how you would activate the switch. And I remembered at that moment that when I was a kid and I saw those buttons in the murmur layer, yes! I had no idea how to hit them, so I spent like 10 to 15 minutes trying to do it, and then I bubble bowled. I was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah,
that's all you do.
Yeah, the ones that were like kind of like in like a hole in the wall, kinda.
Yeah, exactly. And so I kind of get what you're coming from, but I don't know, I'm personally am kind of fine with that. Although I think you do bring up some really good points about the robot AI, especially because, you know, that's not even something that I noticed until you like showed footage of that specifically happening.
Yeah, and there were multiple instances that I didn't even like point out in that video. And of course, these could also be like little bugs or something that they just, you know, need to patch up. Like this could just be a glitch on their end and they could fix it up. But it does lend to the question of like, you know, the hammer robots were the ones I noticed the most. And I also noticed I never really see the G-Loves spinning in any of the footage. So it's like, how long does it take them to get into that attack phase? You know, it seems a lot like their reactions are slower and they don't react until you are closer to them. So it just leaves them more open and vulnerable to the attacks, which makes it kind of seem like what's the point of them having their specialty attack if their attack is worthless.
Yeah, so I remember when I was a kid and I went through this game for the very first time, a lot of challenges definitely in like dealing with the robots, which really fits the theme of the game, which is all about like battling against the robot army. And so I remember, especially when I would go to like those big areas, we have lots of robots attacking you at once, that those were definitely like exciting moments for me as a kid. But I personally never felt like they were so challenging to the point that I couldn't surpass them. I always felt like the game was fair for the most part, you know, so I thought it was kind of interesting that they were making all these changes, but I certainly didn't think much about it. Do you have any like theories as to why you think they're making all these changes?
So this is actually something a lot of people actually comment on my videos whenever I talk about it, and I kind of agree that it seems like, and this is not an attack on like the younger audience, but it seems like the demographic and how people play games today are just completely different. In fact, I remember from your interview with the guy from THQ Nordic, he said that like, regarding the wall jump, like you have to more so spell it out for gamers, because even with the tutorial that shows them how to do it, they still forget how to do it or just don't know how to do it. I remember that, and that really does seem to be the case. And you see, that's the thing for me. It's like, I don't think it's beneficial to give, you know, kids that easy of a game, because I mentioned that there's a certain accomplishment when you get past a task that's super challenging. Like, for example, for me, the two things that come to mind are Mr. Krabs' Dream and the Kelp Forest Slide. Those two are the most rage-inducing moments in the whole entire game for me. But once I got past them, once I did that time challenge for Mermaid Man and all that, I felt such a sense of accomplishment and I celebrated afterwards. But if you dumb it down and make it easy, there's nothing to celebrate. It makes the slides just kind of there. So I don't know. That's kind of my perspective on why I think they're changing it. It's to kind of make it easier for the younger audience, which we call the accessibility reasons. But I don't know. Like that's my best guess.
Yeah, and so I also think that it's something about the culture of gaming in general, because I think I realized this while I was playing the Crash Insane Trilogy. I don't know if you ever played that.
Oh, yes, I have.
Oh, okay. I kind of assumed you probably did since it's a platformer and such. But anyway, I was playing through that, and those games are really tough. Like, they're really difficult. Extremely brutal. And they're definitely nothing like platformers that came out when I was a kid, you know? There was definitely a difference between those games and the games that were coming out in the mid-2000s, just like this one, actually. And so I think even then, like, I could totally imagine that gamers from the 90s were looking at games in the mid-2000s and thinking that, oh, I don't know why they're dumbing down the games so much like this. And so I wonder if it's just been like this trend in gaming that's been happening progressively over decades on end. Because if you look at games a lot nowadays, you see that they're so much more immersive. Like, there's just so much more to them now because of technology. And because there's so much more technology out there, there's so much more you can do with the game. So you can like add even more tutorials, even more ways of helping the player like get through the game. You know, now there's like easy, normal, hard difficulties in a lot of games, and there's even like a narrative mode in some games actually, because some people just want to play the game for the story. And so I feel like there's definitely been a shift in terms of what people want to see mostly in games, and I don't think difficulty is one of them, unfortunately. I think that gamers are looking for more of like a big experience that they can kind of just like dive into, and I'm kind of guilty of this, to be honest. You know, I have never been like a big fan of like really challenging games. The only reason I say this is because, you know, I'm a 25-year-old man. I work 40 hours a week at my normal job, and it's not a easy job. It's a very stressful job. You know, I work as a pharmacist, and you know, sometimes I'm not in the mood to play a game that's like extremely challenging. You know, that's just the honest truth. But I will counter that by saying I recently finished the first game in the Crash Insane trilogy, and after that I went back to replay it, and all of a sudden all these levels that I would lose like 20 plus lives to when I played it for the first time, I was breezing through them without losing any lives, and the satisfaction that I got from that was incredible. Like, it was this euphoric experience almost. You know, it's just like, wow, I totally forgot what it was like to overcome a challenge in a video game. And so I still think there's a lot of value in terms of preserving the difficulty in a video game. So I understand why they're making Valve Bikini Bottom Rehydrated the way that they are. I just think it's just a matter of what the gaming world is like right now and what they're trying to do to appeal to like modern players. But I do think that we are going to be losing some of that magic of the original game if they implement a lot of things like this.
Yeah, like that's my main concern, because of the fact that there were a lot of changes that they didn't want to make to the game because of the fact that it would just detract too much from what made the original great. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned here, because I'm like, I thought one of the greatest things was, you know, for example, I know Triforce Addiction is gonna hate me for this, but the Chuck robot. I actually like the Chuck robot. He presents a challenge, and you have to really watch his movements and strategize when you're gonna jump, how you're gonna do it. And I know he has a lot of problems with him, but I don't. Like, I mean, maybe it's just something you have to really get used to and figure out, but I can dodge him almost every time now, and that just takes practice and figuring it out, and that's the point. You're supposed to be able to develop the skill to do it, and it's not just supposed to be a walk in the park. And I feel like changing that takes away from making it as amazing as the original, and that's just the one hard part. I mean, let me get this out of the way. I feel like I always have to clarify this. I still think this game looks amazing. No matter what I say that it like makes me sound like I am not excited for it, I am super excited for this game. I just really hope that they can put a little bit of a kick, especially towards the end of the game. You know, not have this end, like, don't dumb down Kelp Force too much, or you know, don't make Mr. Krabs' dream like a lot easier, you know, because those are hard segments.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw his video too today, and I used to agree with him. You know, I used to have that same opinion. When I was a kid, I could never figure out how to avoid the Chuck robot. It was always like the most annoying thing to me. But now when I go and play the game, like, the Chuck robot almost never hits me. The only times it would hit me is if I had like 5 or 6 other robots around me. Like, that's the only time that the Chuck robot does like nail a hit on me. And I actually kind of used to have the same opinion about the tartar sauce robot as well, because especially in Jellyfish Fields, like, those things are everywhere, and their aim is not like accurate, but they shoot 3 times, so you kind of get the same effect, and it has such a wide range. You know, I remember that there was this like one tartar robot that's like not even on the same level that I am. You know, when you're in that upper area in Jellyfish Fields, there's a tartar robot like on the bottom that shoots at you, and it's able to reach you. So that, you know, just things like that like really like baffled me as a kid. But looking back on it now as an adult, like, I really enjoyed that challenge. You know, it was like, okay, so I'm here, but I do have to care about what's going on down there as well. I don't know if that was actually intentional or not, but it created like another layer to the challenge of platforming through that level. And so I think we both kind of have the same opinion on this overall. I think that the difficulty is something that is being like messed around with a little bit too much, and I don't think it's gonna be game breaking. Like, I still think the game's gonna function perfectly well on its own, but it's definitely gonna be something I'll make note of if it really is gonna be as big of a thing as it's starting to look like.
Yeah, and like, to me, like, the one thing that I'm actually really concerned about is because of the nerfing of the robots, I'm getting worried about the multiplayer mode. Because how fun is it going to be if all the robots are so easily hittable and you're just kind of just hitting robots the whole time? There should be a little bit of strategy in there. So that's my whole main concern of this all. Like, the story mode, if it's easy, so be it. But the multiplayer mode, if all the robots are nerfed, how quickly will it get stale just fighting the same robots over and over?
Definitely. So we haven't seen the multiplayer mode yet. Well, I have seen it at PAX East, so I was like, I haven't seen enough of it to really judge if like that's gonna be an issue or not, but I guess we'll have to kind of like wait out for that and see how that turns out. But something I definitely wanted to bring up in this discussion that I think I actually have a interesting point about is the cruise bubble. And so they made quite a few changes to the cruise bubble from what we can tell. One, they made it third person, which was a really interesting choice actually. I was not expecting that when I saw the pre-hydrated trailer.
Yeah, it's an interesting change. I'm like kind of divided in the middle about that. I don't love it, I don't hate it.
And also, I think we all are starting to think that the speed of the cruise bubble is also decreased as well. Like I definitely saw that in some of the trailers. Like it definitely just seemed a little bit slower. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that point is proven by the fact that the timer is, I believe, 1 or 2 seconds longer.
An interesting point that I want to bring out though, and I don't know if this is at all true, like maybe some physicists can just like nail me to the ground after they hear me say this, but I think that maybe the third person view might make it seem a little bit slower also. And the reason for that is because when it was in first person, obviously you're much closer. You're a lot more zoomed in terms of like what you're aiming at. But when you're third person, obviously they have to zoom out a little bit because you need to see the actual cruise bubble. And so I'm actually not really sure if it's like that much slower. I think it might just appear to be a little bit slower due to the fact that it's zoomed out a little bit. Although you do bring up a good point too that the timer is also longer, and so I'm not really sure if it's actually that much slower. I think maybe they might have just added some more seconds on it.
Yeah, maybe to make it like easier for people to, if they have a target but they're like so close to making it but they don't quite do it, maybe to make it easier for them. Not quite sure, particularly with the obviously the Robo Spongebob bite, oh my god, boss fight. Yeah, particularly, I mean, with Robot Plankton, actually, it's really interesting. I know, because like quite a few people complain about the Robot Plankton part where you have to try and hit him like inside the Robot Spongebob because he always just seems to not get hit by the missile. And I think it was Triforce Addiction said something about the cruise bubble going through him. I actually never had that experience, so I can't attest to that. But what I experienced when I missed him with the cruise bubble is that he moves right before it hit him. And I was like, I thought that was a good thing. Like, the robot shouldn't just sit there and accept the hit. He should try to dodge it, you know? He should try to strategize, like, what's the best way to hit him. So, making it slower makes it a little more easier to maneuver the cruise bubble in such a way. So, I don't know.
So I will just say this, I do think that that's a very asshole-ish move to just like move at the very last second, but I will say this, it's the last moment before you finish the game.
Yeah.
You know, if there's one moment that's gonna be a little bit cheap, that's gonna give you like a run for your money, it should be that last moment, you know? I would even argue that like, I would say I think the kelp slide is harder than the last boss.
Oh, the kelp slide.
And I don't think I will get much resistance on that opinion because I'm sure all of you have very fond memories of going down that slide as a kid.
Oh my god. If you look up go to a library and look at a book of swears, I've used every swear in that book twice during that slide.
And so it's like, there's going to be one moment in the game that should be a little bit challenging in that aspect. It should be that one. Now, I will say, in regards to the cruise bubble going through the Robot Plankton, I think I have experienced that a couple of times. Specifically, I remember this one time as a kid when I was trying to aim for his laser for some reason instead of like him, and it went through him. So I'm not sure if that was just like a simple little glitch or if they didn't really like expand his hitbox to like that portion, but that's my opinion. That I think as long as you hit like the actual Robot Plankton, it will register the hit, but if you try to aim like anywhere else, then it might not register it.
Yeah, probably. But maybe they changed that in this game too, where if you hit him anywhere, it'll, you know, register. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the game was made from the ground up, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was done like that. So it's not like they're building on like the last game, you know, they had to recreate everything from scratch. So we'll just kind of have to see how that goes. But we've talked a lot about, you know, our concerns with the dumbing down the difficulty and such. I think we should definitely emphasize the fact that this is not a game breaker. You know, the game's probably still going to turn out to be really good, you know, as long as they preserve like the original experience to an extent. I think it's going to turn out to be perfectly fine. I just think that this is a very interesting way to kind of look at how gaming has changed since this game first came out, because I definitely think that games hold your hand a lot more of recent times compared to before.
Yeah, I agree 126%.
Well, I think that's pretty much everything we got. Zach, did you have any last minute thoughts about this yourself?
No, but like you said, like, this game's gonna be great regardless. I can't wait. We are less than a month away, and oh my lord, I'm so excited. I can't wait to get my shiny edition, get my little Spongebob statue. Oh, the excitement is running within my veins.
I'm still like tempted to do one of them. Like, I'm kind of against how expensive those things are, but I'm also a super fan of the game, and I feel like if there's one game that I would make that kind of a purchase for, it's this one. So we'll have to tune in to find out if I actually do it or not. But let us know in the comment section below what y'all think about this issue. Do y'all think that this is something we definitely needs to be addressed, or do y'all think that we're just being dramatic? Let us know in the comment section below. And I just want to thank Zach for coming on here. Like, I really appreciate it, having your input on this. And also, I just gotta say, I think you're doing an awesome job at just like stating your honest opinion, because, you know, not a lot of you like have done YouTube, and so there's a pressure, like, I don't know, I feel it at least, but I don't know if you feel the same way, but there's kind of this pressure to just like abide to the public opinion and try to like maximize your views and subscribers as much as possible. But I noticed that like you're always first to state your most honest opinion on everything, and I think that's really admirable.
Well, thank you. That's making me tear up.
I just wanted to say that to you at some point, whether it was like on recording or not. So.
Well, I'm glad I got to hear it from you, and you too. I mean, how honorable. Like, I like the fact that you're doing this, being able to discuss our opinions on the show. It's really great, and I can't wait to see future episodes and whoever else you manage to pull on.
Oh yeah, I need to go and think about that right now. So, all right, guys. Well, I will see y'all next time. Well guys, there's our show. So thank you so much for tuning into this, by the way. You know, these shows have been very overwhelming to produce actually, and so I'm just kind of glad that I finally got it out. I'm trying to get these out on Sundays, but it's been so tough, you know, trying to get everything, especially this past week in particular, because the Rock Bottom trailer came out on Friday, so it takes time to like make all this and put it all together. But I'm glad that we were able to get this out, and I hope to keep doing this every week up to the release of Rehydrated. And so if there's anything that you want me to like incorporate into these shows, or anything you want me to change, then please let me know in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to incorporate all the feedback. But just again, thank you so much for your support, and I really appreciate it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel if you like videos like these, want to see more in the future. Follow me on Twitter or join my Discord server, the Spongy Garden. Special shout out to Team Rob Sign Gamer, Glitched Dolphin, Andrew Coughlin, New Gamer Hub, Abraham Muner, Maz Muner, Brooke Grillin, and Dennis Jr. These are my patrons/YouTube members. If you'd like to become a patron YouTube member, get access to a whole bunch of different perks, then please check out my links in the description box below. But alright guys, this is Riders riding out.